He began asking me why I put rosemary in the bread or why the flour smelled so sweet. One night, I left him a cinnamon and pill-and-sillow loaf, my mother's recipe, with a note for the ghost who looks for water at 11. The next morning, he returned the note. The ghost needs a recipe. That small connection was the beginning of the end of our distance. He invited me to dinner at a small restaurant, far from anything fancy, and confessed that he'd never chosen anything in his life. His grandfather had molded him like a chess piece. Iris, if I could choose, I'd choose that this wasn't a contract, he said at the end of the evening. That sentence set off my internal alarm bells. I went to the contract and read Clause 23 with fresh eyes. Not only would he lose his company if he fell in love. If I fell in love with him, I would lose the $500,000 I needed for mom's surgery. It was a perfect trap designed to make us both repress our feelings. But the darkest secret wasn't on the paper, but who drafted it. I confronted Sarah in her office. She didn't flinch. She confessed that she had inserted the clause at the request of Dante's grandfather, who wanted to ensure his grandson married out of duty, not feelings. But Sarah had her own plan. If Dante lost the company because of falling in love, she, as lead counsel and with strategic moves, would take control of the board. My own sister had used me as emotional bait to destroy her boss and enrich herself. I felt a deep nausea. I went to see Dante and showed him the truth. He looked at the documents and then at me with that appraising gaze that was now tender. I knew it since last month, he told me calmly. Why didn't you say anything? I asked, trembling. Because I'd rather lose the company than lose the right to tell you how I feel outside of contract. Dante had already quietly moved his pieces. He had created a new, independent firm and transferred his personal assets before the clause could be legally triggered. The contract year ended, but neither of us left. Sarah tried to enforce the clause at the board meeting, but she was left with an empty company and a lawsuit for a conflict of interest and document tampering. She lost her license and her reputation. For my part, I refused the $500,000 from the original contract. I didn't want money that came from a lie. Dante, on the other hand, financed my mother's surgery as a personal gift, without any signatures involved. Today, I no longer smell bread out of necessity, but out of pleasure. We open our own chain of artisanal bakeries. Dante still sits at the bar watching me work, and his ears still turn red every time I tell him that I love him. In the end, Clause 23 wasn't our downfall. It was a reminder that some things, like true love, are too precious to be controlled by a piece of paper. Freedom wasn't about gaining an empire, but about having the courage to let it go for something real.